Narrative adventures have seen an increase in demand in recent years. While the genre is still very niche, its popularity within gaming circles has grown with the release of games like Mouthwashing, 1000x Resist, and Until Then. What's great about these games is their clever systems to keep players engaged. Whether it be simply walking left and right to interact with people and objects, or completing some puzzles to progress, there are subtle touches to these experiences that minimize player exhaustion. Developer UOU Games has taken an interesting approach to their game S4U, Citypunk 2011, and Love Punch, a story set in 2011 that centers around a character in their early 20s trying to figure things out. Books like All This Can Be Different by Sarah Matthews and Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney spotlight crucial life moments as these in a more broad appeal. But S4U takes an approach of using desktop chat software from 2010 to really immerse you in this character's life, which the player slowly shapes. The result is something special, and we'll understand why that is in this review. S4U, Citypunk 2011, and Love Punch takes place across 9 in-game days. You assume the role of Miki as she attempts to remember a password, which requires her to look through saved recordings, and that's about when the game kicks in. From early in the opening, it's clear to see that the presentation and immersion were a significant focus when developing this game. The main screen, where you'll be spending most of your time, resembles an early 2000s computer setup, which was actually kind of jarring for me since I spend all day in front of a computer for work. If anything, this initial surprise was elevated by numerous chat alerts I received from colleagues and family members. It's all a bit chaotic at first, but once you get a knack for navigating the various chat logs, the game flow becomes a bit more natural. The story requires some unpacking. On one hand, you have Miki, a girl who is really trying to step out of her shell and not rely on others to help her achieve her goals by saving money and becoming an architect. She's stubborn and impulsive. At least that's how I made her out to be through choice options and chats. While Miki does have a loosely defined personality, I found plenty of room to make her more apologetic or timid as opposed to snappy and defiant. Your actions during conversations shape Miki's relationships and the lives of the people that she pretends to be. Miki currently has a side hustle of being a mouthpiece. This is essentially someone to assume their online identity and tackle difficult conversations pretending to be the client. This ultimately serves as a foundation for the character development across the 10-hour game, but it rolls out in a rather unique way. You see, a typical narrative adventure has its set protagonist and a supporting cast that round out the story. However, here you have a few different leads, but the supporting cast affects the story differently because most of the time, they think they're talking to someone else. For example, as you try to help a student with a possible apprenticeship, the professor thinks they're talking to the student. It creates an almost out-of-mind experience as you determine where to include Miki's personality or when to guess how the client would actually respond. The developer makes this process tougher to navigate as they have you chatting with other people in Miki's life while handling client requests, creating a chaotic shift in your approach and dialogue choices. It's a brilliant way of forcing the player into a state of immersion and character examination, as if to always remind you that the world is bigger than just one character. Still, through this day job, relationships manage to blossom, and you'll be able to romance one of 4 characters. I didn't actually know who the romanceable characters were when I started the game, so I don't want to spoil them for potential players, but you do get to enjoy a nice festival with the character as a reward. At the end of every day, you're scored, and you can see how your choices affected your friendships and where you stand on your goals. I'd say this is a game you should plan to play at least twice, given that some of the early choices have some weight to them, and with the additional context, you can probably find your way to the preferred route on your second playthrough. That said, the developers have done a great job of teaching players the gameplay systems. For example, the first 2 days are pretty relaxed, but then day 3 comes around and hits you like a brick. Suffice it to say, I was definitely humbled by the deceptively cozy design while trying to save some guy's job and understand what the heck cyberlife even is. Okay, I know that this is the first time I mention it here, but that's basically the reality of Miki's world, a balance of reality and cyber life. What that actually is and how she balances the two while attempting to navigate real life and relationships is up to you. Day 4 dialed back the chaos, but I appreciated how the developers strong-armed me into realizing that my choices do have consequences. This general confusion is likely 2025's biggest flaw. Some of the story elements appear overly personal and specific, and I felt like I was playing as someone else, which is actually pretty fitting for this game. However, getting your brain to that place takes a bit of rewiring because I believe adventure game fans are used to specific pacing, and this game marches to its own beat. For instance, oftentimes you have to wait for a user to finish typing before you can respond, which may be longer or shorter depending on the conversation. Anyway, this forces you to actually read what the characters are saying and not just skim the dialogue boxes. You're forced to exist in this world, which might actually be a turnoff for the hardcore players who speedrun these experiences. The pacing was just right for me, but understanding the ever-changing writing style took some time. Perhaps a selectable encyclopedia sitting on the desk would help the foundation of this world roll out a little faster. Other gameplay elements lead you outside the room to end each day. It's here that you can interact with real people and even get to know Miki better. After navigating the chaotic chats from across the day, this section of gameplay is like a vacation. Dialogue choices still come up as you interact with characters, but I would have liked more stuff to do in these sections, especially in the early days. You can also buy food and gadgets using money you earn, but there's also a balance here that needs to be found because while Miki enjoys her gadgets, she also needs to save money. Going back to the immersive aspects of 2025, this is also found in how you progress dialogue. Players must type on their keyboard and press enter to respond. Using the backspace key will erase your responses and allow you to look at the other possible replies. Miki will sometimes give internal monologue feedback prompts that share the outcome, so you aren't entirely on your own here. I should mention that you don't have to type real words and can just smash on the keys to respond to chats. This system also had me weighing my dialogue choices more carefully depending on whether I was speaking for Miki or one of her clients. The lo-fi soundtrack matches 2025's charm. I found myself sometimes just leaving the game in an idle state and listening to the tracks. Once you complete a route, you unlock a means to jump to specific scenes and fast-forward text, making unlocking the other routes faster. The package lends itself well to the fact that this is an incredible weekend game and one that I felt close to even through the confusing bits. 2025's Citypunk 2011 and Love Punch is an incredible indie gem. It found a way to stand out in a sea of narrative adventures and leaves a noticeable mark on the genre. The clever ways in which this game uses its systems to keep the player engaged, using the chaos of circa 2010 chat software that grounds you in this world from beginning to end. There are a few secrets left for me to uncover, but the approach of touching on multiple human issues while creating a reality where the player sometimes feels just as lost or even as motivated as the protagonist wasn't lost on me while playing. I think there are a lot of great moments in this game, and I hope others take a weekend to discover them as I did. Noisy Pixel is giving 2025, Citypunk 2011, and Love Punch an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Please take a moment to check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.